kept secrets travel.
Now you've decided that you're going to a country, you really want to take a camera with you, you've got a camera of your own for your birthday, or you've had one for a couple of years, or you're borrowing one for a parent or a mate or whatever, or you know you've got the option to take different cameras, like we've got a few options here. How are you going to decide which one to take? I think the key thing is, I think one of the first things we actually do look at is the baggage that we're going to take and the length of the trip.
I normally just try and see how much I can fit in my bag, if I'm honest.
We do normally try and max that out, and we will talk about that in our next camera episode, where we talk about how we pack our bags and how you can really be cheeky about batteries and the weight of batteries, so don't stress too much about those. Especially if you're on some of the trips we've been on, we've taken 4, 6, 8 DSLR batteries or drone batteries. They weigh quite a lot now. These are the things which you might be worrying about, but we will talk about and cover in future episodes. But I think one of the key things is you might be stressing about your baggage limit. You might be thinking, do I need DSLR and do I need a GoPro? Actually, I might take my old GoPro because I don't want to risk that one on certain things. But then at the same time, I want to capture and film. I need to take loads of film roll. These are the things which we've gone through ourselves and we've made the mistakes. So I've been on holidays and taken 6 rolls of film and realised I've only shot 2, or I've gone the exact opposite way and wish I've got more.
Yeah, and it's very important with the drone to always look up the specific country's drone rules, because every country is different.
Also look out on the laws and rules of taking photos in public. This is just a bit of disclaimer for us as well, but also guidance for you guys. Is certain countries you won't be allowed to take photos of people in public. You will.
North Korea is definitely one that there's very strict rules on how you can take photos.
And certain countries have extremely strict rules. I believe in Dubai there, or just parts of the Arab Emirates. You guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe in Arab Emirates, if you take photos of women or kids under a certain age, you can genuinely get in trouble. This is stuff I haven't really tested. And Dubai is slightly different because it's slightly sort of forced westernized, but every country's got a difference.
And then you've also got to be wary of actually where you're going. So in some areas in Colombia and just general South America where it's a bit more dangerous, you need to be careful about flashing expensive equipment out. So one of the things that I did when traveling around India was I had a Canon 5D Mark II, and what I did was I used black Gorilla sort of duct tape, and I taped over every single bit on the camera that said Canon, because it just made the camera look worse. And people, like, everyone knows what Canon is as a brand, and they know it's an expensive brand, and especially in countries like that, people are interested in stealing things like that. If you put loads of duct tape off, make it look really rough, put it in a rough bag rather than a new bag, then these are just sort of safety tips that will help you not get your camera stolen.
Exactly.
So what equipment would you take if you wanted to, if you were going scuba diving? Which options would you go for?
If I was going scuba diving, I'd I've been to a few dive centres where I knew I've only had my DSLR and I don't have a really expensive case for DSLR, but they said, what you can do is you can either rent, or if you just bring a SIM card along, they'll either bring a GoPro with them with a waterproof casing. I believe these new ones can go up to actually quite deep.
Without the casing, it's 10 meters, I think, and that does actually say on the camera. Without the casing, it's about 10 meters, but then you can still get the casing, which is about 40-45 meters.
Okay, so I've been with guys, dive masters, who have used GoPros, taken their own, then sent a bunch of files over just because that's part of the experience and they're offering. I've also come across some who have said you can use this camera free will, here's waterproof case, all you need to supply is the SD card. Or some will just say here's free will and then I'll send the files I load to. Some will just offer a rental of the camera in a case. Depends what you're going for. If you're using digital camera, which are actually really useful whilst you're diving, especially if you're not that experienced, you can buy the waterproof cases now much cheaper. One of the main things I would say, especially regarding diving, is if you really aren't that experienced, focus on your diving and learning to dive before you're trying to learn to dive and then mess around with the camera. because there's enough equipment to practice on and learn, and there's so much going on around you, and you don't want to miss it because a fish can swim past you and then you get to the surface and someone goes, oh my god, did you guys see that sailfish, or did you guys see that tuna, or did you see this eel? And you're just like, oh no, I was playing with the digital zoom underwater and staring at a rock.
But we're going to go into this in more detail in another episode. I know we have an episode on this, so
100%.
We'll cut you off there. So for shooting star trails, what I'd do is you'd have a DSLR and you would have to have a tripod. You can't, although we did actually experiment on the boat with Sunday, shooting the stars without having a tripod.
Yeah.
We just put the camera on the floor and had it shooting up.
One of them came out quite cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, back to it. When you guys are choosing your cameras, think about the weight limit that you've got. Think about actually what do you really want to photograph. Are you going for just purely photos? In which case, I wouldn't 100% recommend bringing a drone because it does weigh a lot. It is a lot of value and it makes you more of a target. Takes up quite a bit of space. If you aren't going with the pure intention of just taking photos, you would be completely perfectly fine just with a phone. You could take a phone and a GoPro. You might take your film camera. One of the recommendations of the film camera is when you pass through an airport, do try and see if when going through the x-ray if they will hand over the film of your camera and not put the camera through the x-ray machine, because the x-ray itself can damage the film. So
what sort of camera gear would you take if you were going to, say, Barcelona?
So if we're including all of the things we've got in front of us,
plus the DSLR.
So for any of our listeners, just so you know, we do have a DJI Mavic Air, we've got a film camera, we've got a GoPro Session, we've got a GoPro
Hero
8 Black, we've got a cheap disposable film camera, which I believe is from Boots,
and an iPhone.
We've got an iPhone, and we're also going to take into account a DSLR. So personally, I'd probably take iPhone on its own, or I'd take the iPhone and DSLR. It's really depending. If I'm going on this trip and I do have photography in mind, then I'll probably take iPhone and DSLR. If I'm going on this trip and I'm thinking, you know what, I just want to actually focus on the trip, I really want to learn about something there, I'll probably just take my iPhone, to be honest. I personally don't think Barcelona, in my head, I need to take my GoPro. For some people, they want to take the GoPro, use it just everywhere, as effectively the memory bank, because you can stick quite a big memory card in there.
Yeah.
Film getting on a flight depends how you really want to do it. Take photos of your passport and stuff going on. GoPro's pretty handy. They're pretty inconspicuous. Benefit is you're never going to mess up on the flash as well in public.
Well, I think this camera's quite good if you're going to bars and nights out with your friends, because the flash is quite good on this, and therefore it takes better low light photos than maybe almost all the other cameras apart from maybe the phone.
I think these now cost £3.50, £5. I think you can get them from Boots. There's a lot of money for something which I believe. I mean, we've still got some film on here. Takes 27 photos, so yeah, it's pretty pricey. Benefit of that is you're not going to be spending your evenings going through your phone, going through your camera. You're actually just taking that photo in the moment, capturing that really specific fun moment. That's the reason why you've got it out. That's why I do actually really appreciate these cameras.
And you're really not bothered about them being stolen either.
No,
because they're literally called a throwaway camera.
Yeah, exactly. All they're doing is popping out the film and processing that later on.
Yeah.